Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2, Chapter 1.7 Notes, Part 1. Today we're going to be talking about identifying the multiplicative and additive inverse properties of real numbers, identify the terms, coefficients, and constants of an algebraic expression, and to be able to simplify an algebraic expression by distributing and combining like terms. Holy shnikes, we got a bunch of stuff to do today. All right. So, background info on algebraic expressions. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about is an algebraic expression. Okay? What that contains is numbers, variables, and operations. Whenever we're doing anything with an expression, that's when we worry about PEMDAS. Okay? The parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Okay? The other thing that we talk about are equations. And with an equation, it's two expressions separated by an equal sign. And whenever you see that equal sign, right away you need to think that that's when we do STADMAP, okay, the reverse order of operations. That's when we're solving something, okay? Now, inverse properties of real numbers. Inverse. What inverse means is that means to undo or cancel something. And there are two properties that we're going to talk about today, the additive inverse and the multiplicative inverse. The additive inverse means that when you add something, I want them to cancel out. So what number do we have to put in there, or what variable in this case should we put in there to make sure that they cancel out? Well, we would put the same thing except make it a negative. Okay? And when we're talking about the multiplicative inverse, when you multiply something, you want to multiply it so when they cancel out, it equals 1. And this is the one that's a little trickier to understand. Okay? So here's an example. If I have the number 2 times what gives me 1? Okay? Well, if you're multiplying something, you divide it. And when you're dividing it, you're really multiplying with a 1 on top of it. So you're multiplying by the reciprocal. Oh, that's not how you spell reciprocal, Mr. Grice. Okay, you need to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, and that's true in this example too, where we're multiplying right now, and to get that to equal 1, we multiply by the reciprocal. All right, the distributive property. Okay, distribute, hopefully you guys have been drilled this into your heads, means to multiply. Okay, so in this first example, if we have 2 times 3x, all we do is just multiply. 2 times 3x, that gives us 6x. Okay, but now you can distribute only when there is addition or subtraction. Okay, and an example like that where there's addition or subtraction would be 2x plus 3. Okay, because now we have to multiply the 2 times the x to give us 2x. 2 times 3 gives us 6. Okay, so that's distributing. Except now we're going to do one that's a little more up to our speed. Okay, our example, negative 2 x squared minus 3x plus 4. Okay? The key thing to know is how many parts are there? Well, there's 1, 2, 3 parts. So if there's 3 parts now, there should be 3 parts in your answer. Okay? So when we distribute everything. And if you need to go off to the side and write negative 2 times x squared, well, that gives me negative 2x squared. All right? The next thing you multiply is negative 2 times negative 3x. Well, a negative times negative is positive x. So we get plus 6x. All right, and the last thing that you multiply is negative 2 times positive 4. So you'd write negative 2 times 4. Well, that gives you negative 8. And then that's your final answer. Okay? All right. For number 1, identify the properties shown. So what do you think those are? We'll look to see what they're doing. Minus, plus, and it equals 0. What does that mean? Well, that means they're usually doing the additive inverse. Okay? And for this one, we are multiplying and we get 1. So that means they're doing the multiplicative inverse. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and do some of these and do them step by step. It says to use the distributive property. Now, for A, you might be like, Mr. Grice, there's nothing out there to distribute. Well, technically there is, because out in front of this negative sign is actually a negative 1. Okay? And I need to distribute everything that's outside, or what's directly outside, to everything that's inside. So, negative 1 times negative 5x. What does that give us? Well, a negative times a negative is positive. Positive 5x. Okay. The next thing that we multiply is negative 1 times 4y. Negative times a positive is negative, and then 1 times 4 is just 4. Okay? And the last time we multiply, so we got negative 1 times negative 6. Negative times negative is positive. Okay? So our final answer that we would need to write down, well, that would be 5x minus 4y plus 6. Okay? Now, key thing to know right here is when we are multiplying, no LCD. Actually, hold on. I want to make sure this is highlighted so you know that there is no LCD when multiplying fractions. Okay? So, same thing as what we did in the previous example. Whatever's outside, multiply it by what's inside. Now for this one, I would actually make sure to do every single one of these problems off to the side, okay? Remember that there's an imaginary 1 underneath that, okay? Our corners, we can actually reduce those, okay? 1 and 5. So you're really multiplying 1 over 1 times negative 5 over 1, which gives us negative 5. Okay. So we have negative 5h. The next thing that we're multiplying is 1 over 7 times 28 over 1. And once again, remember, there is a imaginary 1 underneath that. Same thing as last time. Look at your corners. 7 goes into both of those. And so we're really multiplying 1 over 1 times 4 over 1, which is 4. Okay, last one. You're multiplying 1 over 7 times negative 3 over 4. Looking at your corners, there's nothing you can reduce, so you just multiply straight across. Negative 3 over 28. And that's your final answer. Okay. All right, number C is just like number letter B. So why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video, try that one out, and let's see how you do. Okay, there you go. If you have any specific questions on that, come in for help. All right, D. I wanted to make sure that we went over a problem with decimals. I know it's your favorite. Okay, so when you distribute, same thing, just off to the side, you have 0.3 times 2. Well, you get 6, okay? And there is one number behind the decimal, so make sure that there's one number behind the decimal. And for that first one, we get 0.6 m, okay? And now we just keep on going, okay? Now we have 0.3 times 6. Well, 3 times 6 is 18, carry the 1, 6 times 0, 1. And once again, there's one number behind the decimal. So that's where it goes. So plus 1.8 n. And then the last thing that we've got is 5.4 times 0.3. It doesn't matter what goes on top or what goes on bottom. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 times 5 is 15. Plus 1 is 16. There are two numbers behind the decimal, and that's where 1.62 comes from. So plus up, technically, it's minus 1.62 because it's a positive times a negative, okay? So there's your final answer. All right, let's go ahead and flip it over. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about some terms, coefficients, and constants. Now, some of you guys might know this, but what a term does, terms are separated by positives and negatives. Okay, pluses or minuses. All right, a coefficient is the number multiplied in front of the variable. And the last thing we're talking about is a constant, and that's a number without a visible variable. Okay? So looking at those three things, our terms are separated by those signs. Okay? So we have four terms here. We have the 8x cubed, negative 5x squared, 2/7 x, and then positive 4. Okay? And remember that the coefficient is the number out front. All right? That's being multiplied by the variable. Okay? So my coefficient only deals with what's in front of a variable. So the things that are in front of the variable, well, there's an 8 in front of the 8x cubed. There's a -5 in front of the x squared. And there's a 2/7 in front of the x. Now this last one, there's no variable, so there's no coefficient. Okay? Now the last part, a constant, is a number without a visible variable. Okay, so which ones don't have a variable? Well, there's a variable, there's a variable, there's a variable, but the last one doesn't have one. So 4 is a constant. Okay? Now, I'd like you to do the same thing with number 3. So go ahead and pause it, try it out, and see how you do. Okay, there you go. So I split mine up. Oh, forgot to draw the line right there. Into the 5 different parts. Okay? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So we have 5 terms. So I just wrote down each one of the terms. The coefficient is the number in front of the variable, guys. Remember, it's got to be a variable. That's why 8's not on there. But as a constant, the number without a visible variable, that's where we get 8. Okay? So the key thing to know that is when we're dealing with like terms. Okay? What like terms are, like terms have same variable. So the same variable and same exponent. Okay? And an example of that would be 4x squared plus 8x squared. Okay? Same variable, it's an x, and it's raised to the same exponent. All right? Now, if they were different, say 4x squared plus 8x, those aren't the same. Okay? We can't do anything with them. Combining like terms, what you have to do is you add only the coefficients. Okay? You add only the coefficients, and the key thing with that is the variables don't change. Okay? Variables do not change. Let's go through some examples of that. Looking at A. Okay, we have 2 things here. We need to distribute. Okay, 3 times -9 is -27, and 3 times 8 is +24r. The rest of that comes down, it doesn't change. And now we're looking for things that are the same that we can combine. Okay, 24r plus, remember that's a 1r, gives us 25r, and then -27 minus 5, hold on real quick. Guys, that is the answer, so you can keep it there. I'm just going to highlight it first. So we got 25r, and then -27 minus 5 is -32. Okay? Let's look at B. B we have to distribute 2 separate times. Okay? We have to distribute the 6, and then we have to distribute a -2. Okay? So 6 times x squared gives us 6x squared. 6 times 8 gives us 48. And then 6 times -1 is -6. Okay, -2 times 3 gives us -6. And -2 times 4, or -4, gives us positive 8x squared. Okay? So now we're searching for things that are the same. 6x squared doesn't have a partner, so that's what I'm going to write down first. 48x and 8x, we can combine those two together and get positive 56x. And then the last thing, -6 and -6, when you combine those together, you get -12. All right, C is just like B. Why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure that one out all on your own. Okay, there's the answer. If you didn't get that, come and see us and we'll help you out. All right, D. D, we have to be careful. We have to sort through to find out what we are distributing. All right, now find the parentheses, and it's the number right out front. Okay, so everything else comes straight down. We're not even going to do anything with it. You can write it down right now. 9.4 plus 0.6 plus 1.9m. Okay? Now, the two things we do need to do is we have to distribute and multiply. Okay? So we have 3.8 times 2. Well, 2 times 8 is 16, and 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. I have one number behind the decimal, and that was a -3.8, so that's going to be a -7.6. And don't forget the m. So that is a -7.6 m. Okay? And then we also have to do 3.8 times 5. 5 times 8 is 40. 3 times 5 is 15. Plus the 4 is where we get 19. One number, and once again, it's negative. So we get -19. You can write the 0.0. You really don't need it. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is start to combine my like terms. All right? Okay, we have 7.6 and 1.9. They're opposite signs, so I'm going to subtract. 16 minus 9 is 7. That changes to a 6. 5.7, and remember that that's a -5.7 m. Okay? What's the next thing that we can combine? Well, I've got 3 things right there, and you can do that in any order that you like. All right? I'm just going to add up my 2 positives real quick, and we get 10. So then I have a positive 10 minus 19. And when we combine those two things, we're going to get our final answer of -5.7 m minus 9. Okay? Okay, so E is just like, well, hold on. We're going to come back and do F first. Sorry about that confusion. So, just like our previous example, we're not distributing that 3n, so the 3n comes straight down. But what I am distributing is the 1/2. Okay? So off to the side, I'm doing 1/2 times 3 over 2. I check to see if I can reduce at my corners, which I can't. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 2 is 4. So plus 3 over 4n. Whoops. Now, the next thing we're going to multiply is the 1/2 times 4 over 5. And for this one, we can reduce the diagonals. So we got 1 over 1 times 2 over 5. Well, that equals 2 over 5. So plus 2 over 5. All right, the next thing we do is to see if we can combine our like terms. And that's them over there. So 3 over 1 plus 3 over 4. Now, I need an LCD. And if you don't know this right away, my LCD is going to be 4. So that one stays the same, but how do I make that into a 4? Well, you have to times it. And if you times the bottom, you have to times the top. So we get 12 over 4, and when you add those together, you get 15 over 4. So when we write our final answer, we have 15 over 4n plus 2 over 5. And since they do not have the same variable attached to them, we can't combine them. Okay? All right. The last one I want you to do is letter E, but I want you to do this one all by yourself. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure it out. Good luck. Okay, so that's what I got. You can let me know if you got anything different. All right, if you did, let me know. We'll go through it. But that's it for Algebra 2, Chapter 1.7 Notes, Part 1. The homework is on the website. I believe it's page 69 through 70, and you got 23 through 24, and then 62 through 80 evens. Okay? But if you need any help, come find Ms. Carranza. That's what we get paid the big bucks for. Otherwise, thanks for watching.